Why? Hello there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, my name is Mr. Dogwell333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the new order as the United Mexican States. And last time we were here together, we started working on the strike, which kind of picked up because the doctors joined it. But we're working on negotiating with them, and hopefully we'll get something decent out of it. We're under our radicalism targets. What a purge. Uh-oh. The Yankees have shown their true colors, huh? Well, that's, I was wondering who was going to end up being president there. That's, just... I know now. It's a strange day for freedom. The jar window blew in a warm drift. Aeroles could feel individual beads of precipitation slide down his neck as he fumbled for a handkerchief to dab the sweat. For his trouble, Gomez, the old war dog, looked unfazed, scribbling shorthand on a public education stationery with his novel ballpoint. I don't think the air conditioner is working. Aeroles pushed himself up, fiddling with the window unit dials. They turned easy. The Guangdong machine was well made, all right, but whether or not it was doing anything was anyone's guess. He felt sickly. Sit down. Gomez didn't even bother looking up, his eyes scrutinizing something more important. One of his staff can look at it later, the Licenciado. He sunk back into his chair as Gomez finally looked up and began to dictate. A new proposal. Primary school teachers who are willing to take on afternoon preschool duties will get bonus pay. Requirements will favor university-educated teachers to take on these roles. Airleys felt himself nearly shrug. Inoffensive, fine, not seeing the importance of the matter that Gomez's steely look seemed to suggest. But then it clicked. You think the teachers' unions will fight it? Gomez smiled in a rueful sort of way. Quite. Who knows? The SNT might even get Don Fidel Velasquez involved. This needs to be done regardless, Secretary. The children can't be obstructed by those damn charros. You haven't lost your touch, Licenciado, but we'll be going toe-to-toe with the biggest one of them all. They shared an anxious chuckle. Uh-oh. Let's go ahead and enlarge on Mateos. President Mateos took steps in the right direction for our nation and the revolution during his presidency, most notably with the Cardenista Manifesto 57. But more is needed. If the PRI is going to complete the revolution, must go even further beyond. President Madrazo has made his stance clear. Every single program, including the manifesto, must and will be expanded. Through these programs, the government will be able to service the people of Mexico, the Mexican nation people, and ensure a bright future for the nation. What ended up happening here? Kubitschek, look at that. Madrazo unbuttoned his suit coat as he sat down. The head of National Indigenous Institute, General Director Gonzalo Aguirre Beltran, sat across from him, consulting papers with his spectacles. Beltran's desk was far too small for the documents strewn across it. As he went to fetch his ballpoint, he knocked over a stack of them with his elbow. Madrazo leaned over to help pick up a few. Thank you, Excellency. I'll be honest, this place has fallen apart. We're in dire need of repairs, but we're underfunded. President Madrazo dismissed the matter, straightening himself on the creaky chair that seemed to suffocate him, with its complete disregard for ergonomics. Never fear, Senor Director. The central government can always help. Beltran stood and massaged his hands in a self-soothing rhythm, facing the window. It's the least of our worries, Your Excellency. I'm grateful for your attempt at finding a solution to the indigenous issue. The indigenous issue, of course, being what Beltran believed was outright opposition. I didn't feel the need to engage in theatrics with a southern cyclone. Madrazo nodded. I think the only way to bring indigenous areas back into parity with the rest of the country is massive infrastructure investment. Though I hear you have some reservations. Is that a pun? Probably not. Beltran turned. Excellency, people have the impression that all the Institute is out to do is completely pave over our indigenous identity. Only this time it's going to be literal. I understand the benefits, yes, but it'll be unpopular. An unwanted intrusion. Madrazo paused to consider this before picking himself up to the rickety chair. I'll consider it, Senor Director. But what do you call intrusion? I call modernization. Public Education Secretary Gomez nursed a glass of water while he reclined on an office sofa. While normally such an impromptu meeting among friendly colleagues might call for a drink or two, Gomez knew Madrazo in his youth as a fervent supporter of Governor Garrido's temperance campaign in Tabasco. He carried this prejudice against all things tobacco and alcohol with him to the presidency, to make a point of making it taboo among the cabinet. He didn't want to offend. Your Excellency, I must say the left-wing movement of the party has gotten a new lease on life. Compared to where we were a few years ago, I'm delighted. Madrazo smiled. We still have a lot to do, but you're right. I haven't thought about it in that sense. I'm too caught up in the moment. It's a good way to be. Not dwelling on the past too much. Still, take it in once in a while. You're the first president since Cardenas to be truly committed to the revolutionary cause. Getting up all of a sudden, Gomez peeked into the suitcase that he had taken in with him. He produced a crisp manila folder that he offered to Madrazo seated. Been working on a set of education reforms, Your Excellency. The proposal is quite detailed, but will enforce amendments to the curriculum, introduce ideological screening for teachers, and so on. A mild hum sounded from Madrazo as he quickly perused. Gomez wasn't lying when he said it was extensive. I'm impressed. You'll be getting a blank check on this one, Secretary. You're well capable. You know what to do. Thank you, Your Excellency. The fact that I'm even here right now, picking up your daughter, Miguel. Camilla anxiously tapped the outer wall of the preschool with one of her hands, passing the time until her niece got out of the school. She continued to mumble to herself under her breath. It's a dangerous part of town, too. You should be out here, but you're too busy doing God knows what. All around her, the hustle and bustle of the city streets she called home just got a little bit louder as kids finally got let out of the former brothel turned public preschool. That's one hell of a sight, isn't it? An image. Sifting through the crowd of girls looking for Rosita's new teacher proved to be a challenge, though she spun around after feeling a small hand tug on her shirt. Camilla! Come here, you. Let's get you home to your father. As the two walked home hands held tightly, Camilla's cautious scanning of the streets was interrupted by a blur from below. Library. Huh? What was that, little one? We learned about the library. They took us there. I don't know why that's kind of a British voice. I don't know why a Mexican child is speaking British. You know what? She's become so sophisticated. She's speaking proper British English. Which I don't know how her Mexican aunt can understand that. But you know what? We'll just go with it. Camilla stopped. How wonderful, Rosita. It's a great place, right? Rosita nodded, and Camilla's anger at her brother dissipated into thin air at her niece's excitement. What she would have given for an education that young, she thought. The two shared an embrace in the street. Well, there we go. So I have to get under. Do some mild concessions. And do you want to intimidate? Let's intimidate a little bit. Beltran looked through the proposal the president's staff had sent through. He wondered if Madrazo had given what he said some consideration. Indigenous policy was something that required careful detail, balance, and caution, after all, and certainly the president would know to trust the foremost expert in the field. As he began to turn over the preface, Beltran began to realize that the cyclone was not for turning. His heart sank deep into his chest. A storm would normally wreak havoc by tearing houses, roads, and railways asunder. Yet this one was doing the exact opposite. The irony was not lost on him. Phase 1 of the proposal involved land surveying of indigenous regions and the construction of roads to link them to nearby towns and cities. Once that was done, Phase 2 would kickstart economic development with a mass public sector building project. Hospitals, police stations, offices, and schools would be built up in each of these newly developed areas. Yet Beltran couldn't help but wonder how much of this was for economic reasons, and how much of it was to force the indigenous to integrate into Mexican society. All was repulsive to every fiber of his body. There was no point of question of being able to veto this. His post, however noble, made him no more than a glorified academic. All he could do was try to hold back the storm. Whatever it took. Beltran held his hand in his hands, inside. Well, so much for the wholesome heckin' liberal reformer. That's kind of fucked up. Nobody tell Reddit. We got some gray here in the wholesome reformer. Before we get to drinking, I had a couple words. The Group Popular Guerrero has never been a stronger force for justice. Many newcomers have joined us, and Quebadia's police have generously donated their weapons to the cause of socialist revolution. Arturo Gamiza's wards were met with nervous chuckles and a jackal's howl from across the Durango border. Jacobo stepped forward beside his brother. But our successes have roused the enemy from their stupor. The Ibarra family have called for the aid of their Adio compadres. Roberto Jimenez and Emilio Rascon, brutes and oppressors both. They also managed to bring in the 67th Infantry Battalion. Let's see. Where's Durango? I'm trying to remember. It's easy. Okay. We are enough of a threat now that the Federales are after us. Amidst the resulting whispers, Captain Salvador Gaitan stood up. I've served the military, and you lot are more than their match. They're well armed, sure, but the troops aren't allowed to have minds of their own. Otherwise, they'd realize what shit they're fighting for. You can all have to think, so here's our plan. We attack both groups, all is separated and wandering the desert. Think you can take them? Voices began to call out terrain where such traps can be set, tactics to lure the Caudillos or military forces forward without their counterpart. Salvador nodded along for a time before leaving the rest to Arturo and Jacobo. He sought out Maria lurking near the fringes of the camp. She nodded. He led her out to the twilight of a desert. And he just take a message back to Cebadia. Pay my brother a visit and tell him to get ready. If he won't listen, tell him his career is already over after we hit the police station. She laughed as that jackal howled again. It was over the moment he joined the true revolution. Then her face grew serious. I'll get moving before dawn. The civil servant has discreetly informed Echeverria of Gomez's education plans. The thought had excited him. He pictured the scene, a grand, triumphant young vanguards marching hand in hand, draped in green, white, and red, proud of their nation and its revolutionary heritage. A grand idol. But if anyone were to make it happen, it would be him. Secretary Luis Echeverria Alvarez, no less. He went to Gomez's office after making an appointment, trading small talk about the weather and other banalities. Feeling an awkward urgency once the conversation started to dry up, Echeverria segued the actual purpose of his visit. I've thought about your proposal, Secretary, and I'm delighted, but there are a few changes I want to suggest. Echeverria gestured with his finger, though not really at anything in particular. A revolution serves as a model for the rest of the Americas, but it is a national revolution. Not one dedicated to propagating socialism worldwide. The curriculum should reflect the unity between the Latin American nations. He paused for a moment to gauge Gomez's reaction. The old man gave nothing away. Polite smiles. It unnerved him. It also should reflect the imperialist history of the United States and the Americas, the Monroe Doctrine, the occupation of Veracruz, Cuba. Echeverria trailed off, listing all sorts of historical grievances. What would the Americans think for a start? Mexico's relationship with the U.S. rested on delicate balance. This would be like slamming the pendulum right back over the Rio Grande. Not to mention what the intellectuals would think of all this saber-rattling. Pause their chief, and then the president himself. Thank you for your visit, Licenciado. Yeah, we're already going to upset the eagle plenty. I don't know if we really need to check it too much. There. President Madrazo rocks in his chair. He anxiously reading the letter coming from the soon-to-be Undersecretary of Culture. Paz met with Enrique Guzman, a former leftist presidential candidate 52 and renowned general that Madrazo figured could be a useful ally in his presidency. The conversation was pleasant and seemingly productive until I brought up the reintegration into the party, or, if he desired, the military. Madrazo knew it. Allies wouldn't come this easy. He brought up past electoral fraud and the massacres against his supporters during the election. The paper slid down the desk, Madrazo unwilling to read past the rest. Another potential ally, wrestled away by the bloody past of the organization he would soon find himself president of. The president-elect reflected silently on his time in his party, brooding as if he himself bore some of the guilt, before resolving to finish Paz's report. He mentions that as long as the Pre was the same bloody machine that betrayed him and his people, he cannot in good conscience back you. The former opposition candidate showed no faith in your administration being any different. Could it ever be? Sophia watched Gustavo tug a stained dress over his daughter's head. Her sister was already dressed, though not without a struggle on Sophia's part. It got harder every week as their term progressed. Their only son stood by the door, chewing on his nails while he waited for his sister to get ready. It's not too late to enroll the twins at school. There's a new... You know we need them helping at the market. Deep cracks forming Gustavo's face as he frowned. Of course, but don't argue with me, Sophia. Listen to me. Gustavo was scowling now, but he did not speak. There's a new program in the schools. I read in the paper last week. They're providing a second meal now. I did the math. Having them at the stall won't pay for 2 free meals a day. Gustavo's face softened a little as he scratched at the stubble on his jaw. Fine. Sophia bit at her cheek to stop a smile from spreading across her face. Her children would not have to live as she had. Well, you know what? That's going pretty well, you know? Alright, our credit's not gonna rise too much more at this rate. Oh, we got some solid growth going. Undeniably. I'll cut down on all the army spending. I don't really need that. Okay. Alright, let's do that. Next up, to heal a nation. Every year, diseases ravage their way across the countryside and kill untold numbers of our people. This health and safety crisis has not improved in the light of a doctor's strike, which has exposed the weakness in our healthcare system. However, we can improve our standing at home and abroad by addressing the system's failures, raising morale among the people, increasing our popularity, and making the country healthier. Check on unemployment. All these places. It's starting to drop for the most part. We could use a little extra aid for some of this. We could confront Kakikes. In the northwest. I think that's actually a decent idea. Let's do that. Octavio Paz sat on the mezzanine with Madrazo, the latter fidgeting with his fingers. They both people watched, looking on at the mass of citizens scrambling to get to work in the rush hour. Madrazo had complained of feeling too shut in Los Pinos, so he decided to conduct the meeting Paz had requested at one of the local parks. Bodyguards stood with concealed pistols, and one with a rifle, at either end. The view was oddly tranquil, despite armed oversight and pedestrian noises. Madrazo leaned back on his chair. What was it you were saying about Gomez's reforms? They're too restrictive. There's little agency for teachers. Paz stopped to read some of the dossier. There seems to be no tolerance for any sort of free thinking. I understand the importance of the revolution, Your Excellency. Madrazo snorted in his breath, as Paz was about to come out with another one of his near blasphemous statements. No, I understand. Go on. It cannot be at the expense of individual freedoms. This is not what the generation previous fought for. Not at all. We should be encouraging children to think independently, not herding a nation as sheep. He took a moment to recall something. And by the by, I think the proposed wage increases don't go far enough, Your Excellency. Exceptional standard of education can only be achieved if we're paying our teachers enough. Madrazo pensively scratched his chin, waving his hand dismissively. His vice-tight brow and squinted eyes betrayed ambivalence. Look, I'll think about it. How's it going over here? Kutz is winning. Is that Tomsk? That is Tomsk, right? Meanwhile, the front, Black League. So the company Soviet's doing surprisingly well. The beeps and whirls of the machinery ripped through the air as fast as the tree that was felled by the laborers that flanked them. Sakaba was ripped from her sleep as the workers from outside sought to connect her with themselves. Lahu and a woman from a long line of ancestors as far back as the Mayans glimpsed the machines that came slowly closer to Sakaba. She wept at the trampled crops, the trees being torn asunder to widen the road to bring in more change from the outside. She tried her best to avoid the workers, mestizos, she called them, while unable to keep her eyes from the rapid transformation happening to her village. This time she was passing by the workers like always when Pascal, her lovely ball of light, grinned like he always did and charged towards the sudden new thing. She called him to come back, but she knew it was fruitless to change the boy's mind once he found something interesting. He chatted so excitedly, his hands moving all over the place, his grin infecting the worker Pascal was facing, handing her child something before he finally ran back to her. Nah, look! He thrusted a poster towards her, a poster of what she thought was the president. A wide smile with the words, "All aboard the train of modernity. No one left behind," underneath him. She looked intently at the man in the poster before looking back at her son, noticing something that stirred danger inside her. The man and her son have the same smile. Your Excellency. Madrazo face bespeckled at Chevier. He was clunking a piece of paper, scribbled in a mixture of blue and red ink. Several sentences were underlined or circled. Taking a look at the liberty of having a look at Gomez's proposal, I'm sure he's already informed you of my visiting prior, Your Excellency. He mentioned, Secretary, why do you want these changes? Chevier looked at one of the notes of his own. As I can see, there's a general revolutionary ethos throughout the document, yes? But this curriculum completely divorces it from proper Mexican and wider Latin heritage. Where's the mention of the liberators? Vicente Guerrero, Bolivar. Revolutionary education is nothing about culture, back it up, Your Excellency. I agree, Madrazo replied, caressing his cheek. But I'll need to speak with Gomez in more detail. I hope you can understand. If I may, Your Excellency, I think the period of consultation has gone on far enough. We need a decision sooner rather than later. Madrazo felt himself deflate, and Chevier was like, he wasn't going to be able to put this off any longer. I cannot accept this, Secretary. I gotta say that for a reformer, this guy doesn't seem that enthused on, like, informing. It was 9 in the morning. If the clock on Ordaz's bedside table was to be believed, light spilled through drawn curtains and onto his bed. The suit he wore yesterday lied crumpled on the floor. Ordaz was in his bed, wide awake, staring at the plaster ceiling. He did not move. It was 9:10. Outside the McVeigh house, the noise of the morning commute grew to a crescendo. Verdaz stood and walked to the window, he would see the verdant leaves beginning to fade to scarlet and gold. If Ordaz did not move. It was 9:22. It had been 6 months since that upstart from Tabasco marched in and stole what was his. 6 months of filing the same forms, of having the same lunch-ons with the same jury officials. Ordaz did not move. It was 9:35. It was time to go. Time to crack the window and breathe in the cool autumn air. Time to head downstairs and get to work. Ordaz did not move. The picture. The governor of Jalisco shaking hands with director of the Sayula Municipal Hospital. Before around is a wooden podium with the coat of arms of the free and sovereign states of Jalisco. Beneath them are Mexican and Jaliscan flags, and a banner with the words, "Live healthy, live better." In front of them are an audience of white-coated medical staff, applauding as they smile through the camera. The event, a public unveiling of new plans for the hospital. With the help of the federal government and the State Secretariat of Health, Sayula Municipal Hospital had been giving a new funding grant, substantially larger than the old ones, but money has been earmarked for building improvements like new plumbing and a state-of-the-art HVAC system to improve patient comfort and reduce particles in the operating and recovery rooms. Also including these renovations are funds specifically for a new examination wing with new photographs and x-ray equipment to aid in the diagnosis. The context. Sayula is the center of a series of farming communities centered around the lake that also shares the same name. The hospital is the biggest medical facility in the local area. It has not been getting the attention it deserves. It deserves from the government. With this correction, the hospital can treat and diagnose residents with a level of care closer to one found in the state of Guadalajara to the north. Continued investment will ensure Sayula and Jalisco and all of Mexico will have the health facilities they need to fight Mexico's campaign against poverty and deprivation. The truth. The hospital director is grateful for the funding and the money will go towards the renovations, but larger issues being ignored. In fact, covered up. The white-dressed members of the audience are not medical staff in any sense of the term. They are members of a local high school given the coats by the pre-in-order look impressive. In fact, the real interns of the hospitals have broken for Yamri and are nowhere near Sayula. At the moment, they are marching outside the governor's residence in Guadalajara with compatriots from all over the state, demanding he meet with them to help, or at least to do no harm. Well, what do we want to do? I could get working on some of this, I think. Let's do struggles on the land. It's been many years since the presidents of Mexico lost faith in the government, most of them forgetting the promises that we made to them during and after the revolution. Nor do they care about us being the descendants of the great heroes of land reform. Each day their toil intensifies, with Madrazo knowing that change is overdue to not only deliver on the promise, but to recover both the heart and spirit of the party. Now it is time for us to take the first step, greenlighting the beginning of our projects concerning our collective farms, the Ejidos. And continue to evolve the federal district as a city tradition and history, accommodating a great growing middle class and retaining its unique character. Do you know where this is from? The Secretary of Public Works, Javier Barros Sierra, knew. He'd skimmed over those words before, once. With the same contempt he now heard vocalized. The transport plan for Mexico City? Or Churchill left this piece of shit on my desk, said Coronel Del Rosal, a new region of the federal district. For emphasis, Del Rosal took the binder it came in and threw it all in the trash with a furious shove. The smack of paper and the cling of metal startled Sierra, but soon gave way to satisfaction. You see the slums. You know those people aren't going to be helped by lanes on highways. You better stop this dicking around, cut through the bullshit. Mr. Secretary, I want the metro. Sierra smiled. That was it. Ciudad Mexico Metro. The obvious solution to the city bursting at the seams of slums and sprawl be put on the level of New York, Tokyo, Germania, London. Something Arturo never saw as welcome or necessary. Something about Del Rosal pushed him the wrong way, but personal vibes aside, he was 100% right. I don't like bullshit either, General. Let's get you one. Del Rosal was happy Sierra wasn't going to kick back and scream like a liberal. Great, so let's get it down to brass tacks. We need a plan, and we need something to make the president sign off on this. ICA, those guys came up with the project. So we'll get them to give us a quote. Sierra instantly lost his mind. Ingenieros Civiles y Asociados? They're a good company. I don't doubt Bernardo Quintara could do the job. But they're my former company. It's only fair if you get the others. Or shit. He divested when he took this job, and everyone knows you're clean as a whistle. Quintana wanted to pull a Tokyo here for years, and he's going to do it. And you and I both know it's him and the ICA that can do it. Is that right? Green light all the way. Oh boy. Getting some metro plans on the rise. I'll go until the 10th. See if we get any events. Actually, I'll finish up this focus. Indonesian War. I still can't believe they walked straight into the canyon, said Arturo, gesturing towards the bound soldiers, now moved to a forest clearing. You'd think they'd at least send someone to scout ahead. I guess that's beyond the kind of person dumb and luckless enough to get drafted, said Jacobo. By the Virgin, even Jimenez's guys put up a better fight than this. And even then, they had a handful of shells between them. Well, I guess even Haciendas must pay better than our noble armed forces. Probably spare the poor bastards a couple more bullets, though. But that's where you're wrong, silly Jacobo. Didn't you hear? The Hacienda system was disbanded decades ago by our wise and benevolent government institutions. Since then, our poor starving landlords have barely been able to afford food, let alone ammo for their hired guns. Both brothers laughed. Still, the boy heroes over there are carrying some pretty fancy equipment. If only the men were worth the guns they carry. Now, what are we going to do with them? Blindfold them and cut them loose, I guess. They're more useful to us as a public embarrassment than they are dead. Don't want to attract too much heat too soon, especially since our capabilities have just greatly expanded. Soon will be time for a little more ambition. It can't be this easy. All right, then, said Avery Brundage, the president of the National Olympics Committee. Let's get this started with the presentation. Yes, let's, said Mexico City's Olympic Organization Committee executive head, Jose de Jesus Clark Flores. Starting off, we still don't have a proper chairman, but I have been directing a good section of the work to our finance vice chairman, Licenciado Agustin Legorreta, our building vice chairman, Pedro Ramirez. Licenciado Ramirez? Thank you, said Pedro Ramirez Velasquez with the lights dim and he turned on the projector. The first thing the organizing committee did was to start scouting possible locations for the games. I think we made very great progress in this regard. He changed slides with his words. This is our main stadium, part of the National Autonomous University of Mexico. What Frank Lloyd Wright called the most important building in modern America. We just need to expand it, and we have a place for the opening and closing ceremonies. For existing, that's great. Are there any more buildings we can use? Ramirez smiled and switched slides. This is Estadio Azteca, which is in Mexico City, but we'll have a higher crowd capacity when it opens. So we'll hold the soccer matches there. That's my design, by the way. He started flicking through the slides. The soccer tournaments will be held around the country to lighten the load. Acapulco will hold most of the sailing events. We'll have a line on the pelota and tennis facilities. There's a few locations that we could convert for the minor sports. That leaves us swimming, rowing, basketball, and the villages. Plus the preparations for Cultural Olympiad. There's more. My phone's been ringing all day and night about the possibility that the high altitude will cause the athletes to suffer. We need to have a sporting event in October with a few athletes to put this idea to rest. You better have something ready by then when they get here. No time to waste. Gomez was getting closer, he could feel it, but there was still something more that needed to be added. The president's personal touch. Your Excellency. He moved his eyes from the desk towards the man. Won't be long till I complete the reforms we wanted, and so I wanted your opinion on this piece, and if need be, add some edits of your own. Thank you, Secretary. Madrazo gripped the papers, offered to him, and flipped through it. Everything appeared excellent, maybe a few tweaks were necessary, but aside from that, it appeared to be something he couldn't add more to. At least before side of his conscience spoke to him. Memories of his meeting with Paz about the reforms. Was it so wrong? The teachers should be paid more. That what we thought for was the right of the students of today to think independently like Madrazo himself had back then. His mind whispered about going back and forth with itself before coming to a decision. With sharp intake, he darted his eyes off the papers and towards Gomez. I'll be making some edits to this document, Secretary. Boy. I'm not sure what the fuck's going on in South Africa anymore. They're kind of winning. They're kind of not. It's complicated. I do not get it. Anyway. Honey? Are you coming to bed? Matthias' wife asked from the study doorway. I have to finish this book. I'm almost done. The sun had set hours before Matias Jael Ramirez was still reading. Lit only by a single standing lamp, Matias was firmly sunk in a plush leather armchair. Matias barely glanced up at his wife. His heavy, wrinkled eyes were too focused on the thin black lines he was beholding. Matias was reading Pedro Martinez, a Mexican peasant and his family by U.S. sociologist Oscar Lewis. It was a non-fiction account of an impoverished peasant's life after the revolution. A lifelong pre-bureaucrat, Matthias had spent his year enacting the promises of revolution one small step at a time. Matthias had the book recommended to him by one of his colleagues. He was told that it was relevant to the president's recent speech on the need to combat rural poverty. Soon after beginning the book, Matthias turned each page with intrigue and disappointment. He quickly learned that the life of Pedro Ramirez was not one that had benefited from the revolution. In the years after the revolution, Pedro's life remained disappointingly static. His poor rural existence remained fundamentally the same, as his hometown only saw gradual improvement, despite all the promises by the PRI. Matthias looked at the room around him and his dutiful wife. Life had changed much for him in the past 50 years. He had grown up in a small farming town like Pedro, and his father had fought in the revolution. Now he sat in a two-story home in a nice neighborhood of Mexico City. He had a reliable power, running water, and many personal luxuries. All things that Pedro Martinez lacked. Don't worry, honey, the book will still be there in the morning. Matias's wife interrupted his mournful musings by removing the spectacles from his tired eyes. It's not done yet. Matthias was only a couple of years from retirement. He looked at his wife with great weariness. Dear, do you think I've done enough? I'm sure you've done your best, honey. I'm sure you've done the best you can. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Well, thanks always for watching, gang. Like this video if you like, dislike if you didn't, leave any comments, feedback down in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I appreciate any feedback you have for me. Check out my various links down in the description box below, leave any comments, feedback down in the comment section below, and the sub button notification bell for uploads weekdays as well as occasionally Saturdays. I'm going to leave that there for now. Thanks for watching, my friends. My name has been Mr. Dogboat333, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye now.